Shifting focus now to Ukraine. It has a new long-range cruise missile codenamed Flamingo. Now, there are pictures of this new weapon days after the Ukrainian president told the world about it. Footage published by a Ukrainian media outlet showed the launch of the missile being test-fired, equipped with a 1,150-kilogram warhead and having a range of more than 3,000 kilometers. This new missile represents a major advancement in Ukraine's strike capabilities. In fact, Volodymyr Zelensky earlier said that mass production could begin soon. And this is big. The test comes amid heightened debate over how Ukraine is conducting its long-range strikes. And Zelensky has said that Ukraine uses domestically produced weapons for such operations and does not coordinate targets with the United States. His comments followed a Wall Street Journal report that Washington has quietly set up an approval process to limit Ukraine's use of American-made long-range missiles inside Russia. According to that report, the U.S. Defense Secretary has had the authority to block such strikes since late spring, effectively holding back Ukraine's use of the missiles against Russian targets. But during Ukraine's Independence Day speech, Zelensky flatly denied any such restrictions were under discussion. Meanwhile, the fighting on the ground has intensified. Russia claimed that its forces carried out extensive strikes on Ukrainian drone bases and ammunition depots. Moscow also said that its troops took control of another settlement in the Dnipropetrovsk region. But Ukraine reported it had repelled the Russian offensive in multiple regions and destroyed large amounts of Russian military equipment. And even as the military pressure mounts, diplomatic efforts are picking up pace. In a joint press conference with Norway's Prime Minister, Zelensky said that Ukrainian and U.S. teams will be meeting this weekend to explore the possibility of peace talks with Russia and discuss security guarantees for Ukraine. That announcement follows recent high-level diplomacy. Early this month, U.S. President Donald Trump, remember, met the Russian president in Alaska. Trump also held separate talks with Zelensky and the European leaders last week. From Moscow, the Russian Foreign Ministry has said that all parties should build on the successes of the Alaska talks. The foreign minister saying that President Putin is willing to meet Zelensky, but only if such a meeting could bring decisive results. For now, Russia suggests raising the level of delegation talks before any such summit takes place. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has told reporters that the U.S. will only play a backup role in Ukraine's security guarantees, putting the onus instead on Europe to take the lead in securing Ukraine's guarantees. But he warned of serious consequences if Putin and Zelensky fail to meet. And with the political maneuvering continuing, Russia is pressing ahead with military recruitment at home. On Tuesday itself, the Russian Defense Ministry released footage showing men signing up at a recruitment center in St. Petersburg. Residents between the ages of 18 and 65 are eligible to enlist if physically fit. New recruits are being offered a lump sum of 2.5 million rubles, that's around 31,000 US dollars, along with a monthly salary starting at 210,000 rubles, about $2,600. Once enlisted, they will be deployed for training and then sent to units in Russia's Leningrad military district, some of them eventually taking part in what Moscow continues to call its special military operation in Ukraine. And here's also why India is standing firm and not bending to Trump's tariff tantrums. By its own admission, the US is profiting from the Ukraine war, and the hypocrisy is staggering. While America punishes India with heavy tariffs for buying Russian oil, Washington is cashing in by selling weapons to Europe, which are then resold to Ukraine at a 10% markup. So while the US accuses India of so-called profiteering from Russian oil, it is openly admitting to making money through arms deals. Speaking to Fox News, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said, and I'm quoting, "We sell weapons to the Europeans who then sell them to the Ukrainians. And President Trump takes a 10% markup on the weapons. Perhaps this 10% will cover the cost of air cover," quote unquote. And then in another interview, Besant slammed India for buying Russian oil, refining it, and then exporting petroleum products. Besant said, and I'm quoting, "They are just profiteering, buying cheap Russian oil, reselling it as product," quote unquote. Quick question to Besant. Are you not doing the very same thing that you're trying to accuse India of doing? Or does America only see what it wants to see? Or worse, does America really believe it has some preordained right to do what it doesn't allow others to do? You see, Besant claims that Indian refiners made $16 billion in excess profits, which benefited some of the richest families in India, quote unquote. That's the claim. America has even floated secondary tariffs against India, remember, but not on China, even though Beijing is a major Russian energy buyer. Why this differential treatment, you ask? The simple answer, one word: hypocrisy. According to Besant, the Trump administration views China differently because it was a Russian customer. Long before the Ukraine war started, that's what they want you to believe. But the truth really is, Trump wants to give China an easier ride, to allow broader trade talks on China's rare earth minerals and also to avoid disrupting imports ahead of the Christmas season. But coming back to the United States, Besant made these comments to try and justify the Trump administration's hefty 50% tariffs on Indian goods, supposedly as punishment for buying Russian oil. But Washington cannot hide the sheer hypocrisy here, the utter absurdity of its own arguments. As the Indian government has repeatedly pointed out, the European Union imports more from Russia than India, even today, despite stopping trade with Russia since the Ukraine war started in 2022. Yet, the EU and China have faced no such punishment from the United States. So, if the goal was to try and crush Russia's earnings so it cannot fund the war, exempting major customers and targeting a strategic ally like India seems to make no sense. And if, according to the US, India is indeed guilty of what it says, profiteering from the war, then isn't the Trump administration in no position to lecture India if it itself is making money from the Ukraine war? Remember, Trump himself boasted during his re-election campaign that he could end the war in 24 hours. So here's a reminder to the United States. The world remembers. The path to peace in Ukraine passes through Washington. But then the bigger story is also about how Europe and the US remain deeply tied to this energy trade. Despite the sweeping sanctions, Russia has continued to earn massive sums from energy exports. Since February 2022, Moscow has collected close to $1 trillion from fossil fuels, with over $300 billion coming from sanctioning nations. The EU alone paid $242 billion, making it Russia's single largest energy customer. Russian gas exports to Europe even rose by up to 20% in 2024, while half of Russia's LNG still flows into the EU. India, by contrast, accounts for 13% of Russia's fossil fuel revenues, less than Europe's 23%. And the bigger winners have been American and European companies, by the way. US LNG now covers nearly half of Europe's imports, with Brussels signing a $750 billion deal to secure gas supplies. $750 billion. American oil majors like ExxonMobil and Chevron saw profits jump 125% post the war as the prices spiked. And even today, Europe continues to buy Russian fuels indirectly, while also paying 4 times the US domestic rate for American gas. Analysts argue that if profits are the measure, it is not India, but Western energy giants and governments that have benefited the most from the war-driven energy realignment. across India, preparations in full swing for Ganesh Chaturthi tomorrow. From Mumbai to Kolkata, Assam to Tamil Nadu, artisans are giving the final touches to idols of the Lord Ganesha, while devotees gather for fairs and first look unveilings of iconic idols. The festival marks the homecoming of the god and is celebrated across India with a lot of devotion and community spirit. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.